Hi, welcome to Saturday morning, our reading for Advent for Everyone, specifically from the Garden of Gethsemane text. I dress like this every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, in case you're wondering. So the text that really strikes me from this today is when Jesus says, "My soul is overwhelmed with grief, even to death. Stay here and keep watch with me," he tells the disciples. I thought Wright's story about the vulnerability of that father at the beginning of his text was so powerful, talking about this man who was effervescent, who loved his daughter, who was always smiling and happy and trying to distract her, and one day he comes home and is upset and broken and crying, and it is because his sister has died. Wright says that but for the shock of his sudden vulnerability. In that same way, I think that's how the disciples had to feel in this Gethsemane text. As opposed to focusing on the disciples not being able to stay awake and all of their failures in that way, instead, Wright just keeps focus on this idea that Jesus asked the disciples to keep watch with him in this place of greatest vulnerability. And we move from these texts that have been parabolic, that describe how that we need to keep watch for this coming of the Son of Man and all these things about the temple, to a real place of understanding that Jesus went through things that were very difficult in this life, that Jesus understood pain and suffering and hardship more than anyone. I find it amazing how Wright talks about the fact that Jesus prayed the Lord's Prayer and prayed and the words of the Sermon on the Mount about going through suffering were coming true for Jesus in that very place. So Jesus truly embodied those words that he preached just earlier in his ministry as Matthew describes them. I think it gives us good pause to remember that there are people all around us, and maybe you're one of them right now, going through very difficult times and places of deep hardship. And that rather than shying away from those people or wondering if they need space, Jesus calls us to keep watch with him, to be among them, to be close to those who are vulnerable and who are most in need of our love and the grace of Jesus at this time. God bless you today.